During this fall semester, I was enrolled in EDUC 466. I went into the class very excited about continuing my service learning in the art room setting. As compared to your 350 and 450, it's harder to think about the class in terms of your own content area. Because it's not with your content professor, and if you're in a specialties like art, music, or physical education, you're typically overlooked. Excuse me. And you're typically overlooked, and in EDUC 350 and 450, you're always by yourself. So in terms of reflection on a lesson or the overall day, you need to do it as a self-reflection. So being in the school for EDUC 466 with other art education students and being able to do a peer teaching every week allows for more growth in my own mindset faster than in a solo setting. I really enjoyed being in the elementary school and with the grade levels that my group and I had, because if I went into student teaching without ever being in a kindergarten class, I think I definitely would be more nervous than I already am to student teach. So in the service learning for EDUC 466, I had the opportunity to work in the art classroom setting at Beatty Elementary School under supervision of Miss Kimberly Noel. As previously stated, I had the opportunity to be in two grade levels, third grade classes, A and B groups, alternating weeks, and kindergarten groups, the same alternating schedule. While creating lesson plans for each lesson taught to both groups or individual lessons for third and kindergarten every week, which was turned into Canvas. While also having a blog post in Art 326 that was due every week, where I reflected on either my time at BD or my past experiences. In this presentation, I will be talking about my past experiences in my own learning and in my learning experiences from Art 326, EDUC 466, and EDUC 450 at the high school. Also, I apologize for my voice. I am sick. So at BD, during this time, my group and I were at BD. It was very reminiscent of my own old elementary school. Both BD and my old elementary school were both built in the same year. They had the same door fixtures, same carpet, same everything, and yes, even the smell when you walked into the school smelled exactly the same. Brought back a lot of memories. During the first week of EDUC 466, we were asked to relate an educational experience that we had. Now, I didn't actually do this correctly in the beginning when I first wrote this essay. As I tried to link my high school graduation with as an educational experience that I had learned, yet I actually didn't learn much from that, and I really didn't understand the idea of an education experience. But now, upon all the memories and the time that I've had to reflect, and during this semester, I think I've come up with an educational experience that I've learned and realized just now. I hope that it's correct, and I'm fully understanding the idea of an educational experience. But relating back to this year, and upon all the memories that I've had and the time to reflect, I've just learned and realized upon rereading Being Creative, A Mother Speaks, I found a familiar connection that I made with the student being described in the reading with Kate. I realized that I was the exact same way as Kate's mother had described as her being as a child in school, except for the higher IQ part. I don't have that. I was disruptive in class, my reading and math scores fell drastically in second and into third grade, and I became extremely behind. Neither of my teachers could understand why. Neither my mom could understand. So I spent the rest of my elementary school education struggling until I received help in 5th grade to help me with my reading and math. But it still is difficult today. Now you're probably wondering how this all connects to the school and how it connects to BD. Well, I'll explain quickly and shortly from the beginning. Being at PD every Friday, it was very reminiscent of my time in 1st through 4th grade, my elementary school. And when I think about it all, this remembering and critical thought is all this remembering and critical thinking about my learning experiences, I'm not sure is a good or bad thing. Honestly, I still haven't yet decided if it was a good or bad thing. Mostly because in the beginning, yes, elementary school was one of the best experiences from what I previously thought before all my education classes started, and teaching at BEAD. But being in a different role of a teacher, reading experiences like what Kate's mother described her having, it brought back a lot of ideas that maybe it wasn't as great as I had originally thought. The students that have clipboards during class in the elementary school now are very reminiscent of my younger self. Yet the power of the brain and my subconscious pushed those memories out of my brain. So until I was actually in that setting, seeing the students, seeing their behavior, and seeing the clipboard, it suddenly brought back all those memories. Maybe because of the fact it was embarrassing for me, or whatever it was, something, I never thought about I never thought about it before being at BD. But also seeing the students that reminded of us ourselves. I think we can all really reflect and look at our class and think about those students that we see and be like, oh yeah, that was me when I was a kid, or oh, I had that same tendency, or I like that same thing. And it brought back kind of like an echo of our younger selves. Now, before this gets way too deep, and I'll start to wrap it up here and leave you thinking about that for yourself. But overall, for me, that's one of my many driving factors of continuing to be in education. These students just need someone to be that resource to talk to have a creative outlet in their classroom, and being able to come help them and their parents understand what's going on with the child in the school. Maybe their child's really creative and they are struggling with reading and writing and math. I feel like the art teacher can provide the resource for their student to have that creative outlet while also helping them in their own elementary school teaching. But also giving that support that I witnessed Miss Noel giving on a daily basis to all her students, and particularly in our kindergarten class, as a lot of students struggled behaviorally, academically, maybe they were behind in like ways that they could utilize the materials. She always helped them, and she always helped them even throughout their struggles and supported them. And ultimately, that's what I would like to provide for the next generation of tiny humans. So at Brainy, this semester, it was really helpful to be in a different environment than just in a classroom setting. This was the biggest thing the one biggest thing that I took out of Art 326 was the museum tour readings. The reading in the video, 3 models of dialogue, about works of art by Olga Hubbard that talk about how to guide students to create their own way of thinking and understanding a subject without giving them the answers. In this model of talking to students, there are 3 different modes of dialogue that you can engage with your students. Predetermined dialogue being like the teacher has a set of things they want their students to follow or want information that they want them to know at the beginning of class. So they build upon that scaffolding throughout their lesson in the teaching. How to get the students and basically how to get the students to understand that you have to scaffold for them. So you start out with explaining what is it they're going to learn, and if they're going to learn about the Renaissance, you talk about the Renaissance, and then you build upon that, and then you pose questions on how can you bring that into your own art, into the student's art. For myself, I think that this is a very good way to lay the groundwork for students that might not know anything about art. Explaining first, then talking about how you can apply this to their own artwork. Now, interpretive dialogue has 2 different parts to it, open and thematic. Now, for me, I'm only going to talk about open dialogue because this is getting long, and as that and predetermined was the two I focused on, particularly in utilizing in brainy tours. I hope that made sense. Open dialogue is something that I think students of all ages are able to participate in because it's completely open. There isn't a right or wrong answer, and I think it's nice to have the students know that so that they don't feel self-conscious about getting the wrong answer. This idea ties back into the video that we watched, and I'll link below, where the educator is asking a group of adults, but you can use it for students, the same 3 questions over and over, no matter how redundant and really irritating it gets. He asks, what do you see, what do you know, or what do you see, how do you know that, and why do you think that? By asking these 3 questions to all students over and over, it gets them thinking deeper. Now, I did try this with some of my students during brainy tours, and it worked so well that our group ran out of time when looking at the painting, and we ran into our creative process time. But we finished early with my planned tour, and some of the students were really drawn to this figure of mother and child. So I didn't know actually doing it myself, the study or the research for that painting. I decided to pose those questions to the students, and it led to a more engaging discussion than I could ever have planned for or written in the lesson plan, or expected the students to actually come up with those ideas. So lastly, I had just pretty picture just to talk, but this is just an overall wrapping up of what I've learned. Overall, as I said in my 450 interview to Ryan, and what I talked about in Art 326 during Claire's presentation, I learned a lot this past semester than I have ever been, or that I have ever known, and I could think that I could ever know. Being in the high school during the 450 time was really showing me not to be scared of the high school students, and not to show fear when around the kindergartners, because sometimes I think they can sense fear. Truly, they can. My own ideas on what I've learned, I could create a long list of what I've learned. As I would continue to list off everything that I have learned, I'll just briefly pass over everything that I talked about. Creating a lesson plan, perfecting a lesson plan, both the very long lesson plan from Art 326 and an EDC 466, creating a unit plan, and seeing how it builds upon each other to create an overall class that has a central idea, as I saw this being utilized in 450 after talking with Chelsea at Fossil about how she designed her new studio art history class, which I really loved. Working with elementary schoolers in 3rd kindergarten, and everything that goes into that. Some things I never even thought about before being in the class. Just being comforting to students and the kindergartners when they cry, and just being able to be soft and comforting to them. And improving on how I talk with younger tiny humans, as I struggled in the past, and I still struggle sometimes talking to tiny humans, because I use big words sometimes, or I ramble and they don't understand me. I don't even understand me sometimes, but we'll just keep going. I definitely can continue to improve on that, and into student teaching, I think I'll definitely improve on it. I would continue, but that would make this definitely longer than 10 minutes, as I think this has already gone over 10 minutes. So overall, thank you to everyone, and thank